something important I need to tell you. It's that it's spoilerin time. And at the very end of the spoilerin time, we will be spoiling Fargo, episode 8 of season 2. Now, before that, though, it's very important to realize that we will be spoilering The Leftovers, episodes 7 through 10. So you, Stan, are going to be very happy. We'll even read your email. We're also going to spoil The Man in the High Castle, episode 4. We're going to look at the movie draft. But Brian Brushwood, how do you feel about making Stan so happy?
Stan was the one who was happy about Man in the High Castle, question mark?
Leftovers.
Okay, look, here's the thing. Do not read my ability to watch certain shows in certain orders as any kind of indictment of their quality. Understand, I'm a dude who, I don't know if you heard, I got a little bit going on here or there. And also trying to raise 3 kids, which means there's certain times that there's content that's appropriate for me to throw on the screen and other times that there's not. And on top of everything is the vector of, and I'm sure you deal with this, Tom, is the, on top of everything is, can I play this now? And am I adding to the bank account with the wife, or am I taking away from the bank account of my wife by playing it right now? And so for right now, like Man in the High Castle, Bonnie wants to watch, so I can only watch it when she wants to watch it, which means it goes slower than I'd like. However, getting caught up on The Leftovers, great. And by the way, between you and me, looks really good for me to plow straight through Transparent. Bonnie doesn't seem to care about that, and I'm super stoked to watch all of them.
All right, that's good to know, because that means I need to make time to watch Transparent, because my schedule gets all over the place too. Like, I was plowing ahead on Leftovers because I happen to have lots of time on Sunday nights, and then this week all my time disappeared, and Brian's like, hey, I caught up on Leftovers. So I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. Thankfully, we've got another person in the house with us today to do some spoilerin. Also a fan of Man in the High Castle. Mr. Ewan Rankin is here.
Hello, mate.
BritishTechNetwork.com, folks. Go check it out. Enjoy it. He's got a plethora. Plethora is too small a word for everything that is available at the British Tech Network. Are you ready to spoil?
Most definitely.
All right. Well, let's start with the movie draft.
Oh, it's happening! Draft.diamondclub.tv, and you, my friends, can see exactly how everyone's doing. Sitting there, as pretty as can be, in first place is Tom Merritt with $445 million. Second place. Yeah, dude, that peanuts keeps on giving. However, I got to tell you, Malango is in trouble. He is in second place. His newest movie, The Good Dinosaur, has vastly underperformed expectations and hopes. It is a Pixar movie, but it does not look like it's lighting up anything at the moment. And if he's out and you're the one to beat, I am not optimistic about me being able to beat all of your slate with just one movie at 75% of gross value, but I'm less worried about that than I am about defeating you and Malango. And now that Malango is pretty much out, I can calm down.
Yeah, I've got Sisters and Daddy's Home left. So let's be real. Not much more than 100 million tops between those two. Yeah, so I'm gonna top out below 600 million.
Well, so let's call it $550 million,
sure,
which again would be a respectable showing for you. But the question is, 75% of the first 45 days of the new Star Wars movie, equaling more than 550,000, is insane.
733 million is the total gross in the contest period that you need to get out of Star Wars to top 550 million.
Wait, say that again.
733 million.
So I have to do 733. So not only do I have to break the all-time record, but we have to break it in faster than ever in order to get me to be a competitor against this.
I think it'll do it, though. I really do.
I mean, it might.
I think it might.
The hype engine has never been more wound tight, right?
Ewan, do you think we're crazy?
No, I liked your spread of movies. There was a few good bankers in there that I thought, there's some canny choices, and it shows because you're at the top of the table. And then I saw The Force Awakens on one on the bottom, and I'm thinking, right, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's got a lot to
But
do.
again, it's those two very fundamental provisos: the fact that it's only 75% and it's only in as long as the draft is running. So it has to be done by February 12th, I think was the end date.
I think it'll be done by then, though. I think you're right. I think that's the peak period.
I don't know. We'll see.
I think the best part about it is that you can legitimately sit there and say, I don't know. And I can say like, oh no, I think you'll get it. But it's not a deal's done, right? There's actually a competition on, which is great. And Malanga would be in it if The Good Dinosaur had lived up to expectations. It hasn't flopped at 75 million, but it definitely has not done what I expected it to do either.
By the way, quick side note, if you go to draft.diamondclub.tv, you'll notice that the Chat Realm Top 50 has a number of different configurations. To our surprise, it seems like the number one winner always has a unique combination of games. If I win, realize that you're going to look at the Chat Realm League and all of these are going to be replaced, and it's just going to be one word: Star Wars over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, totally.
I got to say, the smart money's on Brian, though. I think I would give it a definite better than an outside chance.
Again, I don't know. I do want to real quick give a tip of the hat to Krampus is doing very, very well. It's very highly reviewed. People are saying it's the new Gremlins. It's the new dark Christmas comedy. If you like Christmas horror, Krampus is going to be around and on your list for a long, long time.
That is in the theaters here in the U.S. right now and coming out this week in the Heart of the Sea, Christy Cates movie. And that's actually going to do all right, I think.
Christy Cates is such an awesome person. She is cheerleading, even as even for not her movies, from the sidelines on Twitter, which makes me so very, very happy.
Yeah. All right. The Man in the High Castle, episode 4, Brian. Tell us a little bit about it so we can spoil it.
Better. Also not good enough. It's like after just seeing quality being all over the map, and maybe I'm polluted by Leftovers vision, but it is a good advancement of the story, a little bit flat in a directorial context compared to The Leftovers. It was great to see, what's his name, the chick's boyfriend really decide to kill someone and then, go through the motions, pull out the gun, and then whoopsie, somebody else took care of it for him. That was interesting. We didn't get resolution on what the point of the letter was going to be from the Nazi side of things, whether it was, laced with ricin, or I believe we saw some microfiche being put in there, which makes me believe that it's, some kind of like helping you out type thing. I don't know. I got to give it a couple more episodes. For now, I don't have much to report outside of it's good enough, and I'll keep watching.
This is the episode with the Crown Prince's speech too, as well, right?
Yeah, correct.
Because it's hard because a lot of these episodes just kind of blend together for me. Interesting to note that the last 2 episodes were written by Thomas Schnauz, and then in this case, Jace Richdale, and the previous one, Evan Wright. Frank Spotnitz wrote the first 2 episodes, and then we go into a stretch with Rob Williams. So I wonder if that helps, if that's some of the change in tone, because I feel like we're headed towards a couple of more interesting episodes for you. But what did you think about that speech scene?
It was fine, I guess. It wasn't as bad as the worst episode so far. So I'm 4 episodes in. First 2 episodes, I thought both of them were extraordinary because they advanced. The first one really sold the world. The second one sold the characters. The third one was like they put the brakes on everything. And
I thought 3 was really weak.
Yeah, right. And it just sort of like was like, no, they sure do torture you in this world. 4 was at least moving forward, but I got to tell you, man, it's like I'm not buying the silly toothpick chewing bad guy of all bad guys. He's too cartoony to me.
I thought that what was quite interesting was that you saw this utopian Nazi world at the start, and the Japanese world. I thought there was I thought there was some nice touches in the way that the backdrops were drawn. It felt a little Blade Runner-ish at times. And I loved some of the cinematography. It was very reminiscent of the first season of Heroes, which I thought was shot beautifully, even though it was a crap story. And I just thought that series one, like you said, it established the world. And then the second one was quite good because you got swept into this idea that the world was in a, there's this wonderful Nazi world, and you don't see behind the facade of seeing the nice skylines and things like that in New York. And then all of a sudden, the ash starts raining down on the guy's sandwich after he gets his wheel changed, and you're like, oh yeah, they're still killing the cripples and they're doing all the horrible things. And I thought 3 was an extension of that in the Japanese gas chamber bit. It was establishing that the regimes were still horrific. There wasn't any beauty in this. There wasn't any nice things to recover it or redeem it. And I think you could, they're constantly talking about debasing. When Hitler dies, they're going to be weak. So therefore, killing the emperor is something that makes them stronger against the Japanese. And there's a tussle between the two. Because I was sitting through 3 thinking, I can't see the Japanese and the Nazis ever getting on with each other after the war. That would never have happened.
And of course that's the great political intrigue of the show in general, and that's my favorite part of The Man in the High Castle is that if the United States is a player, they're a bit player in this thing. It's like the real war is between the two grown-ups, of Japan and Germany on there.
Yeah, it's the Soviet Union and U.S. except Japan and Nazi Germany, which is there's less of a coldness to the war, right? It's a little warmer of a war, I think. And then you have Nazi Germany's internecine intrigue, which I remember in episode 4, I was still not sure who Joe really worked for. He seemed like he was a triple or quadruple agent.
I get the feeling he's changing. Are we talking about the? Yeah, we're talking about. So I get the feeling he was affirmed as being a defunct Nazi, and then he's watched the film and he's kind of not sure anymore. And there's little things that chip away at him, like the fact that he goes against his better judgment and saves the girl on the dam. And I think I see him as someone who's crumbling in his political beliefs more than anything. Definitely so in 4.
Well, shall we move on, Brian?
Yes, indeed we shall.
Stan Cook wrote, guys, what's going on? Leftovers. You even said you were going to cover it this week. Such outstanding episodes. I've not watched this week's episode. Blah, blah, blah. I agree with you about Jessica Jones and Fargo, but you're really missing something. Well, guess what, Stan Cook? Stan Cook? Wait a minute. Is he a jazz musician? No, it's a different guy. You are going to get episodes 7 through 10 of The Leftovers, which Brian binged a finish to and then inspired me to squeeze in the last episode today. So we're all caught up. And Brian, I have to say, I love the way they continue to change how they tell the stories. They did it a little bit in season 1, but it seems like they're in a stretch in these episodes. Every story is a different way of storytelling. And
that's fine, right? That's something we've seen a number of times before, but I don't think we've seen so many of the stories be so good. They're all good stories, right? Like the story of the oldest son trying on for size, working with his mom, pretending to do the Dr. Hugs a Lot routine, the idea of them trying to break down the guilty remnant in there, certainly getting closer and closer to a solution, and that moment when you get a firm resolution, when you find out what happened to the missing girls, was immensely satisfying. And I was not prepared for that. I did not expect for them to give me such a black and white answer for that. I even loved, and again, if there's anybody who's going to roll his eyes at this conceit, it's me, but I loved the episode that took place in the weird post-human after space, the purgatory-like environment where you got to pick a profession, and Kevin Garvey became an international assassin. I loved it, and I did not expect to love it.
I didn't want to. I was worried that episode was going to lose me because I'm like, well, this is weird. And it almost feels like they just wanted to get a cheaper set and a hotel was available to shoot in at first. But they pulled it off. They carried it through. And it was, again, another great way of telling a story about, you can interpret it several different ways, right? You can think he's really going through this. You can think this is like a post-traumatic gunshot fever dream. Well, until the very end of that episode, in which case it's pretty clear that he's crawling out of the dirt somehow, and there's hardly an explanation
and
for
by
that.
the way, that was one of the tricky things is they had him crawl out of the dirt, and you're like, oh, he's back now. But then when he gets shot, it's suddenly like, oh wait, now he's back there again because that's where he just came from. Was a
little goofier when they're like, oh, you just need to sing a song and then you can go back. I was a little bit disappointed that it worked, right? That he just sang the song and came back, but he was still shot. So part of me is like, wait a minute, maybe he didn't actually go back to the hotel this time. That was just his like bleeding dream.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I've had those dreams, Tom. It's like, what is the most embarrassing thing, the most horrific situation for yourself to be in? You're talking to a guy who went and competed on a real-life reality competition where he tried to dance, and to this day still has recurring nightmares that he has to learn a new dance and get up in front of people to do it or whatever. So it's like, if you're going to bleed out and have this kind of like, well, if you want to get back, you have to sing a song, then and I loved, forgive my language here, loved how shitty he sang it. It's like, I believed it. I was afraid that it was going to be some beautiful rendition, and it was not. It was great.
But here's the thing that I love about season 2 of The Leftovers, and this is why this season is working for me. First season, my problem was never that they didn't explain things, right? And that's when you hear Ewan say like, oh, it's from the guys who made Lost, so we're not going to get any resolutions. I knew that going in. Eyes wide open, like, okay, this is not about solving a mystery. This is not a mystery show, which is, I think, what we all wanted from Lost. And some of us were disappointed that it didn't wrap it up Agatha Christie style at the end. And that's fine. That's totally fair. I think that knowing that, I've just felt Leftovers was still dragging for me. Like it's not that it wasn't solving mysteries. It was just moving slowly. This season, they've got the pace nailed by shifting perspectives and saying, okay, the story we want to tell doesn't really move fast enough for people, so let's keep it interesting. Let's show it from the perspective of John, then show it from the perspective of Nora, then take an episode and have, as a Matt, the father, the preacher, and then we're going to do a whole like post-death scene to trip with people, and then we're gonna show people in bits here like Liv Tyler. We're going to show her a bit of her, and then we're going to have an entire episode of her. And it just kept me interested because it was always telling the story in a unique way. And it's a compelling story. The story is about how do people react to things they can't control and can't explain.
Yeah. I got to say, one thing the show has, especially in the second season, demonstrated that it does very, very well is the ability to give you the illusion that everything's all right. For a few, they sell you the line that it's like, oh, everything's okay. You know, look at us. We're all in Jordan, Texas, and we're coming together as a family. I feel it. And then it breaks that for you. And you're like, this is so broken, it'll never get fixed. And then it gets together. You're like, or is it? It's pretty fixed right now. And we end on a very, very fixed moment. That moment when Kevin Garvey, after going on his vision quest, after dying, after coming back, after getting shot, after all of those things, coming home, and I gotta tell you, I really felt something when he looks and sees his whole family there, his ex-wife, his current wife, girlfriend, his daughter, his son, and even Matt and his awakened wife, where it's like, yeah, by the way, big question for a while. Is she awake or isn't she? She's awake. Everyone can see it now. Let's move on. It was adorable, and I found myself excited and confused for Kevin, which I suppose is exactly what they wanted me to feel.
But it's not wrapped up, right? The city is
far
burning,
from it,
and people are rioting, and a cross is being nailed up, and that's not good. And so unlike last season where it wrapped up the season and then they kind of had to rip apart the premise a little to give you some uncertainty again.
Yeah.
This season, they're like, we did both. In one hand, we wrapped everything up for Kevin and gave him everything and solved, and said, yes, okay, here's what's happening here. But there's still the platform in which he lives. I live here now is a wreck. It's essentially gone.
It's also a fascinating idea to think that, one of the big differences from last season to this season was that last season it was very clear that the everyone being taken was an event that happened once and now it's over. And then this season brought in the idea of like, well, why wouldn't it happen again? And that alone is an interesting element to it. But on top of that, to add that it's the guilty remnant going out of their way to manufacture situations to be like to cause people to suspect that's what's going on. It's really great. It's great. It's a great show. It's well told, very human drama, and I did not expect a show with on the surface such a simplistic formula to resonate so well with me. But I enjoy it very, very much.
All right, let's finish up with Fargo, episode 8, Lop Lop, the cabin in the woods, essentially, when Ed and Peggy take Dodd up into the cabin and basically try to unsuccessfully call the Gerhardts and blackmail them, and they just can't get through to the right person.
Yeah, that was a bit of a step back. Real quick, you and have you watched Fargo at all?
No, I really would like to, but I haven't had the time to do it. It's not one of those things that when you get that kind of, I've got to prioritize what I'm going to watch because I don't have enough time to watch all of it.
Right.
And it's always come up against something which has got a little bit more kind of appeal, I think, to be fair. But it's something that people keep saying, oh, you should watch it. You should definitely watch it. I will do it, I'm sure. It'd be like The Shield. I'll watch it, after it's 20 years old or something.
Ha! Fargo, when you do get around to watching it, I would recommend, and I told this to my brother, I really would love to hear from somebody who goes into Fargo not knowing anything and watches them out of order. I would love for somebody to watch season 2 and then watch season 1. And the only reason I say that is because the two, affect each other not at all. And this is a unique opportunity to just, flip things around.
I will be your guinea pig.
Good.
Brian.
Good.
Excellent.
Tell me the ones to watch, and I'll watch them in that order.
Well, then don't listen too closely as we talk about this one. But this one, Brian spent a lot of time in one location, which we usually get more of a flip back and forth. We essentially saw Hansi tracking Ed and Peggy, and then Ed and Peggy in the cabin, and Peggy showing that she is way more of a loose cannon and or psychopath than Ed, for sure.
Well, and certainly on yes, she is a loose cannon, but I don't think she regards herself as a loose cannon, right? She the big beats we got here is this strange synergy, this sameness that we have with Ed and Peggy is her name. Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Where they're on the same page, but for very different reasons. He's very practical. She's enjoying the metaphor of what this means to be actualized and moving on. It's funny also because the episode before ended with Ed calling Mike Milligan. And you just assume that Mike Milligan was the first call that he made, whereas this time, it's the entire thing is he's calling a million times trying to get a hold of Dodd's family, and nobody's taken or the Gerhardts, and nobody's taken his call. Slightly cheesy, and I understand this is the time, and you have to have elements of the story that come across somehow, but boy, is that a convenient newspaper that just has headlines like, Mike Milligan is currently holed up in the Pearl Hotel. Here's their number. That
one struck me as odd because if the newspaper knows that Mike Milligan is holed up in the hotel, wouldn't the police also?
Yeah, but also and again, this is I can make an excuse for, it's like, yeah, but the police don't have the time, the effort, or the wherewithal to invest in trying to tackle him down. Also, he's not currently guilty of any crime. He's not a wanted
I
man.
guess that's good.
It would be the equivalent of like when we're kids, if it was, if there was some article saying like Pablo Escobar is in St. Martin, and we're like, that's great. I understand he's supposed to be a bad guy.
Right, right. No, I guess that makes sense, but it struck me a little convenient.
Yes.
myself.
No, in that regard, you're 100% correct, right?
I took a sick fascination with Peggy and her approach to Dodd, her very practical stabbing of him to get him to behave.
So wonderful. So wonderful.
Yeah. And you absolutely nailed it. They captured the dynamic of any relationship where people think they're agreeing and then realize, well, I suppose we're agreeing, but we had very fundamentally different ideas of why. And that is like the most crazy twisted version of that. It's not like, we should go to the grocery store. Well, I thought we were going for toilet paper. Oh, I thought we were going for beer. It's it's way worse than that.
Yeah. There was one moment that was a bit odd, and I think they did it right. For the first time, I understood what they were going for. There's a moment where Peggy is watching television. Dodd is in the background. He's all tied up, and she gets sucked into a crap movie about defeating the Nazis or whatever. And it's a played out, hackneyed scene of somebody, is like, the French need to escape from a prison, and he volunteers to sacrifice his life or whatever. And for some reason, it's not just being shown on the television, but it actually goes full screen. And I remember while it was happening, I remember thinking vaguely, oh, wait, this is what her experience is like. She's the kind of person who gets drawn into things and doesn't see the world around her. I was like, I bet something really important is happening in the world around her right now that she's not seeing and we're not seeing because it's pulling this magic trick on us. And sure enough, when it pulled out, you saw the empty ropes and you saw that Dodd had escaped. I thought that was really good.
What am I missing here? Because we see Hansi tracking Dodd the whole time. And as far as I'm concerned, Hansi, for whatever reason, has a bond with Dodd and is going to always support him. And he's tracking him to find him. And then Hansi shows up, and they've done a couple of establishing scenes of Hansi in a bar, particularly where he's experiencing racism and reacts violently by killing people. And so we get to Dodd, and he's rescued Dodd, and Dodd calls him a half-breed, but it's certainly not the first time. And then Hansi finally kills Dodd, like emotionlessly, just shoots him through the head. It seemed a little abrupt to me. I felt like that was more than just a twist. I wasn't sure why Hansi ever followed him in the first place then.
It seemed abrupt. I'm not going to say out of character necessarily because, to be honest, like Hansi is our Mike Ehrmantraut in this, right? Like the consummate professional, somebody who's just better and above everyone else, and who over the course of our show, you can tell he's not a fan of the wishes of the folks he works for, but he does it because he's a pro or whatever. And then at some point and you're right, it is a big enough surprise that you have to go back and reevaluate. But after that trigger is pulled, I'm able to reevaluate and say, yeah, if I'm Hansi, I'm fed up with those assholes too,
Yeah, and part of me wants to be like, yeah, but he didn't get angry, but that's Hansi.
Right.
Hansi is very cool and collected and professional, like you said. So you wouldn't expect him to get angry. Internally, he made a shift of like, all right, I've been putting up with this long enough. I'm done with this. And then of course he almost has a little post-traumatic scene where he's like, can you cut my hair? Which is part practical. Like, people are going to be looking for me, so I need a haircut. And then part sort of like, I need to calm down. Also showing his confidence in his power that I will hand pointed objects to this lady and ask her to cut my hair because they will be thankful enough that I killed Dodd.
Yeah, it's almost like a dare, right? At that point where he's like, seriously, go for it. And that what's funny is we felt denied as viewers because he didn't get his haircut. like we see the
bit,
tantalizing, the scissors and the hair in there, and it's snip, and it just misses. So there are episodes where we get surprises, and then oftentimes the next episode we get a context and a reason for that big surprise. Is this one of those episodes? Because I don't remember anything that we had seen beforehand indicating that we should expect the cops should be showing up to bust up the party.
I think the last we saw of Lou and Hank was Ed running off and them saying, well, don't worry, we know where he's going.
We'll get to him later, yeah.
And they just didn't get to the house in time, so they've been tracking him ever since, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so I as per their rhythm, we'll almost certainly get that story going into next week. But man, it's tough. It's tough to, and again, I'm not pooping on Jessica Jones, but it's like it's tough, or even Man in the High Castle. Man in the High Castle and Jessica Jones are both fine for what they are. But when you look at them side by side to the storytelling, not the story, but the storytelling of The Leftovers and Fargo, it is hard to see them in the same category. Like Fargo and The Leftovers are telling, like there's just a second level of talent.
Are you including season 1 of The Leftovers in that statement?
Yeah, no, I will. I'm more forgiving of The Leftovers season 1 than most are, and that's fine. If it's not your bag, I totally understand it. But you can't fault its storytelling.
In the first season, we covered that well. I would agree with you in the mechanical nature of the story. Leftovers is hard to compare with Jessica Jones, Man in the High Castle, even Fargo, because it's a different kind of story that's being told. But I love Jessica Jones a lot. At the same time, I will definitely put Fargo firmly above it in its quality of storytelling.
Chatterim agrees. Fargo is in a class of its own.
Yeah. No, that's definitely accurate.
I mean, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Speaking of which, a little bit of a hat tip to the internet. First teaser images are out of the next season of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
And there's things I want to say that I will not, because even in Spoilerin time, there's too much spoilerin.
And that is it. You and Rankin, thanks for hanging around, man. We appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it.
Like I said, check out British Tech
We haven't seen
Network.
another each other. You need to come on the show, both of you.
Yeah.
Come
I'm
on,
sorry I've been so busy running 7 different ways, but I definitely want to do it.
We do it for fun. You do it for work.
It's fun work.
No, it's fun work. But I mean, ours is pure fun.
Folks, we will spoil you again next time. Brian Brushwood, you get the last word.
Fortuitousness. That's the last word. I guess now word is the last word. But thanks to the recursive statement, word is the last word.
You should have just
including
said
this
bum.
iteration of me saying word is the last word. Bollocks.
That's a better word.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.